Good evening and welcome to a show of Harmonics. Today's guest is somebody really, really bright, colorful, energetic, Jacques Gautreaux. Jacques, how are you?
Hey Greg, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Show me your rings, man. Show the rings. Man, we're going to have a party tonight, man. We're going to do this.
We are.
Can you dig it? And what's the name of your band, the band that you're playing with right now?
I'm in a band called Rewind, that 80s band. Hence my special look, yes.
I like that look, man. You doing all right?
Greg. Yeah, I'm trying, you know.
That's what we're supposed to do. So I'm going to get right into this, man, because, you know, your look, man, you look like you're just getting stepped out of L.A. somewhere. Paris, New York, wherever, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So tell me about your early beginnings. What all happened, and how did you start all this in your early beginnings when you were young?
Well, I will say that my grandmother was a jazz singer in Los Angeles in the 20s. And she played with Gus Arnheim and a couple other pretty well-known band leaders at the time. And she had her own radio show live on the air with a big band behind her. And she used to do this deal down in Tijuana in like 1928.
Amazing.
Pretty cool. And so then my dad came along, and my dad is from San Lorenzo.
Okay.
And went to San Lorenzo High School, class of 57.
Okay.
And he was a rock and roll singer.
Really?
And he worked with Don Barksdale out of Oakland. You know, Don Barksdale, pretty famous guy.
Yes, very famous.
And my dad recorded 4 records with Don Barksdale. One called Lobo Jones, which has been re-released all over the world on CDs. Alec Palau actually produced a CD with my dad. And
know Alec very well.
Yeah, he did all that stuff. He did a song called Raised on Rock and Roll, Rock It Up to the Moon, on Rhythm Records, Don Barksdale's label.
Wow.
Then he got a deal with Decca, and they flew him back to New York City, and he did 4 singles with Decca, or 4 sides with Decca, 2 of which have been released, and the other 2 have never been released, but I have acetates of them.
You still have those?
I do. The Lobo Jones record is the one that everybody wants. It's worth about $3,000 for an original 45. I got a couple of them.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You know, before we came into the studio, before we started this interview with you, you were talking about Sugar Pie Santos.
Yeah.
Your dad and her played on the same bill. Is that right?
They did, yeah. In fact, you'll see the graphic at some point. I have a poster of one of their shows. I think it's from 1958, the Redwood City Veterans Hall or something. And I'm pretty sure I have the only copy ever of that poster, because it was taken off of a pole. My dad's best friend was his manager, and he pulled it off of a pole. And about 15 years ago, he gave that to me for Christmas.
Such a beautiful
and it's the only
gift.
one probably in existence. It's pretty neat.
Such a beautiful gift for
The
you.
only other one I've seen is Village Music up in Mill Valley.
Same poster?
No, it's the same format, different show. And he has one up there, and it was in his window, and his was all faded out. Amazing. And I tried to buy it, and it was pretty pricey. So mine is perfect.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, because that's basically how they did a lot of promo. It was either on radio or on telephone poles.
Yeah. Now,
right?
the other cool thing about my dad is that he opened for Gene Vincent at the Sweets Ballroom, 1959.
Wow.
And, you know, that's pretty cool.
That is very cool. Jeff Beck is a big fan of Gene Vincent and did an album of
Yeah, I have it.
Gene. Yeah, oh,
I have the video, the
great.
DVD.
It's great.
I'm a big rockabilly fan.
Oh, then let's take a little moment of silence just for a second for the great Billy London.
Yeah, Billy. He was the real deal.
He was the real deal. He came on the show, and we're thinking about you, Billy. God bless you.
Yeah.
So let's go into your own musical career. When did that start? When did you get that you wanted to play music, and the urge and the desire and the passion?
All right, so I started on drums when I was 8 years old, out in Pleasanton. I was raised out there, and that's back when they had band in school. elementary school band. I played the drums in the 3rd grade. And then in junior high school, I started on guitar and bass, and I played in the school jazz band. 7th, 8th grade, learned how to read music and stuff. I also played the drums. And I transitioned to bass guitar because my buddy was a drummer, and I was a little better than him. So he convinced me I should be the bass player in the jazz band. He'd be the drummer.
Sound like the Van Halens.
Yeah. So that was pretty good. And then I went to Foothill High School out in Pleasanton, and I played in the jazz band out there all 4 years, and played bass guitar. And we went to like the Reno Jazz Festival and the Portland Jazz Festival, all that neat stuff. And then my senior year, I ended up having a band called the Slugs. And we played on campus. We played all the high school parties, and I continued on with that.
Beer kegs.
Yeah. In fact, I'll recall a show we did down in Pomona. We did like this little West Coast fraternity tour. We ended up in Pomona, down south, and played this frat party, and there was like 2 inches of beer on the floor. And this guy kept hitting the mic stand into my face, into my lips, and that happens. It's not pleasant.
Right.
And I finally knew the guy was really drunk. So I told him, I said, if you hit me again, I'm gonna hurt you bad. I told his buddies, like, get this guy out of here. And sure enough, wham, hit me right in the face. I took the edge of my Les Paul and smashed him in the face. And he just went, down, and I saw the splash, and then I saw him being dragged away. And I'm sure the next morning he woke up and tried to figure out what happened to him that night.
Got hit by a Les Paul.
He got hit by a Les Paul. It was not good, but I had a bloody lip. So,
that's interesting that you talked about high school bands.
Yeah, very important.
That's really such a great breeding ground of talent right there. You meet a lot of different people. They don't really do the arts that well in school. In college, it's different. And you were a student here, right?
I went to Chabot. Yeah, I was here from September of 1983 through probably March of '86. So, and in fact, when you mentioned high school, I went to high school with a couple of guys that are really making it in the music business. One guy's name is Roger Manning, and he was in a band called Jellyfish. I went to Amador High School. He and I won the 8th grade talent show together.
Was he together?
Me and him in the 8th grade talent show in
That's
Pleasanton.
great.
And also a guy named Ryan Roxy, plays with Alice Cooper.
Alice.
Yeah, and he and I used to jam in high school, and he's really achieved. I mean, he's got his own radio, talk show, podcast. He's in Stockholm, but still,
a great place to be.
Yeah, the guy's made it.
Oh, well, hey, you're making it. You're right here,
Hey,
man. You're making it.
I do what I can.
That's right, and it's always about really making it. Is just being able to do it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter. I mean, we all have seen the rag papers where people have said this about a person, or that you're still about and you're still vibrant.
Yeah.
Who have you played with? You mentioned a few names, but your groups, you just who have you played with over the years?
So after the Slugs, I was in the printing business at the time, and I ended up working with a guy named Luke Skyscraper James. True. Luke Skyscraper James was in a band called Fashion,
right,
out of Birmingham, England, and they were sort of a punk reggae band, and they played with like Duran Duran and The Cure and the Police. In fact, in '79, they opened for the Police on their first U.S. tour. Really. Luke is 6'10", and that song in Your Brother's Gonna Kill Me and he's 6'10", that was about him.
Oh, really?
Seriously.
And what instrument did he play?
He played guitar, and he's a very prolific songwriter. He's still going strong, and we're still good friends. And he and I and a couple of guys from the Slugs, we started a band. And we actually recorded a CD of, I think, about 12 or 14 original songs that Luke wrote. And it's very good. I'm very proud of it. Didn't sell it. We just made it kind of for ourselves. We did it at a place called Lumberjack Productions down in off Tennyson.
Okay.
Back in that was like '94. And then '99 rolled along, and I responded to an ad in the very last issue of BAM magazine.
I miss that magazine.
Yeah, and it sat on my table for a couple weeks, and I saw this ad. I was trying to find a band, and it said, "Classic rock band looking for a guitar player, San Lorenzo rehearsal space." So I'm like, wow, I live in San Lorenzo, I'm ready. So I responded to the ad, and I showed up, and who shows up at the same time? John Robertson, mutual friend.
Okay. And
John Robertson and I both have the same Sunburst Les Paul and the same Dan Electro distortion pedal, and we're looking at each other like, what? Okay. And we start playing, and I play this chord, and he goes, where'd you learn that chord? I'm all, well, that's a 13th chord, man. He goes, I know what chord that is. I said, only one guy plays that chord, Truman Lee.
Wow.
And I said, well, I took lessons from Truman Lee in the 70s. He says, yeah, and I took lessons from Truman Lee in the 60s.
Unbelievable. Serious.
So that was like,
That's you guys honed right in there.
boom. We bonded, yeah. And we did that band for 16 years. Yeah.
So you played in a lot of places.
We played a lot of places. We also did a lot of recording.
And what was the name of the band again?
The Diehards.
The Diehards.
Out of Hayward. We played almost every Hayward Street party up until 2014. We worked with a guy named Lou Doran, who holds patents for quadraphonic audio. He's a kind of a mad scientist. He's since passed away a few years ago, but he knew the Beau Brummels. He knew a guy named Butch Engel and the Styx. He worked at Fantasy in the late 60s. And anyway, he kind of hired us as his studio band. So we did a lot of like sessions for artists that he wanted to demo. He connected us with Ron Elliott from the Beau Brummels in 2003. Ron had a bunch of songs that he had written, music only. And the band wrote music around Elliott's lyrics, and we recorded a rock opera called Storyteller. And it's Lord of the Rings, is what it is.
Interesting.
It's pretty cool. I'm very proud of it. And then a few years later, 2011, the Beau Brummels got back together, and we recorded an album with the Beau Brummels at the studio.
That must have been fine. You do Laugh with them?
We did, and Don't Talk to Strangers, and I remember the other hit that they had. There was like three big hits.
Yeah, they had some three great ones.
But Alec was on that. Alec was involved in that. He wrote the liner notes for the record.
Yes.
And it was the first time that all four original guys, except John Peterson, because he had passed away, but all four guys were in the studio at the same time. Declan Mulligan, who left the band in '65, was there.
Really?
Sal was there, Ron Meager, Ron
Sal's
Elliott.
a great guy.
So for me, it was just like...
So you played with them?
Yeah, we did the tracks. We recorded it.
Beautiful.
I played mostly acoustic, electric, rhythm guitar. I'm like a color man, so I add textures
Give
and
that
things like
shade.
that. Yeah. I'm not so much of a lead guitar player as I am a riff guy and textures. But just playing with those guys in the same studio was really incredible.
Was that Fantasy you said?
No, this was our Lou's studio. He had a 48-track digital studio built in a one of these storage containers out at Alameda Point, right by the Hornet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we recorded that thing, and gosh, it was a whirlwind. And unfortunately, I don't know, I wasn't that happy with it because it wasn't mixed very well. And frankly, we'd rehearse the track with Elliott on a Thursday night, and we'd lay it down on Saturday.
Okay.
So we didn't really have time to flesh out the songs, and anyway, but it was an amazing experience for me. Just being with those guys and hearing the stories from back in the day.
They had, they were, well, they're legends. Obviously, they're legends. But Sal and that song and the Beau Brummels, they were just, they were the San Francisco sound.
That's right.
Along with this Jefferson Airplane, all this Janice, they were all in that time period.
They were actually the first big San Francisco band.
The first.
Before the
Jefferson, all of them before Janice, they were like how they dress and how they looked. They looked like San Francisco Beatles.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, they were just great guys. I was lucky enough to meet Sal at a book signing, the largest book signing that we did. It's at Barnes and Nobles, and it was just great to have him. Alec was there, and
was that for the East Bay Garage Band books? I was there. I got all my books signed.
Okay, then you probably got my name. In fact, Sujoy and I actually filmed that. We have that documented because we knew that was an important piece of history in East Bay. It's
a lot of
really
those guys
good.
aren't with us anymore. Rick Stevens.
Oh, Rick
Gone.
is a great guy. We did Rick too when he first came out. We got lucky to get Rick. But God bless you, Rick, also, man. All of you guys that you passed. So let's talk about your collectibles. What's up with what do you got? What is your collectibles?
Oh, so I'm big on mid-century, like 50s stuff, 50s, 60s. So I have my house is kind of like a 50s museum. It's lots of like Haywood Wakefield furniture and funky 50s lamps and stuff. And I got a little guitar collection, of course. I like Firebirds and Gretches, kind of my thing. But I also really like collecting vintage media.
So when you talk about media, are you talking about tape recordings?
Tapes, slides, photographs, paper ephemera as well. But I particularly like the tapes. I have a pretty nice reel-to-reel deck, and I find reel-to-reel tapes at estate sales all the time. And most of the time they're not labeled correctly. It's just, there's nothing on it, so it's totally hit and miss. But sometimes you really score big and you get lucky, and I did. About 7 or maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I found a collection of about 30 or 40 reel-to-reel tapes, and every one of them was labeled like KPFA, KMPX, Larry Miller Show, right?
Unbelievable.
And so I bought them all, and I've started listening to them, and they are literally hours and hours and hours of just off-the-air recordings from KMPX from the Summer of Love up until they went off the air.
Unbelievable. And you got that in an estate sale?
For almost nothing. I rescued them from the trash is how I look at it. They would have gone in the dumpster.
Yes, yes.
And that was just because I recognized KMPX. I knew about KMPX and
of course.
that kind of thing. And I didn't know who Larry Miller was, though. I was like, I'm buying these. So I actually only bought half of them. And I went home and I put one on, and I was like, oh my God, because it's like pristine. It's like being in the control booth in 1967.
Wow.
And I told my wife, I said, we're going back first thing tomorrow. We're going to find every stinking tape in this place and we're going to buy it. And that's what we did.
Great.
But it's incredible because like Larry Miller was the overnight guy. He came on at 10 p.m. and went to 6 a.m. And what he did is he had in studio guests come in after they played in the city that night. It'd be like 1 or 2 in the morning, and they'd come on and they'd spend the rest of the night with Larry Miller.
Just hanging out.
Hanging out. So I have one with Cream. Okay.
One of my favorite bands. Jack Bruce, Ginger Baker, and of course, Eric Clapton.
This was about a month before Disraeli Gears came out.
You got to be kidding me.
And Felix Pappalardi was there with them, who was their manager at the time. And he brought a rough dub of Disraeli Gears, and they played it on the air a month before it was released. Rough cuts. They hadn't even finished recording the album yet. And Cream talked about every track, and they played it. And then they said, on the air, they said, this has never been played before. It's the first time ever on the air. And unfortunately for me, I only have an hour and a half of it, and the tape ran out. But it went on probably all night.
But the music was being played while they were talking.
Yeah, or they'd say, oh, this next song is called, White Room or whatever, or Strange Brew or something. And then they'd say, well,
This is how it went, mate.
Exactly. And it's a really small booth, and you can hear them eating hamburgers, you hear them doing the wrappers, and I mean, it's really intimate.
I heard the Brits, when they first came to the United States, they loved our burgers.
Oh yeah,
Burgers
they
and
don't have
fries.
those
They don't have
Wimpies. They have Wimpies in London. But anyway, I think it's a real treasure, this recording.
Oh,
and,
most definitely.
And I've ripped it to MP3, and I can't find any reference to anybody else having it, other than I was on YouTube looking at Larry Miller. He passed away too in 2015. He's given this interview about his radio career, and he says, the coolest thing that ever happened to me was that I interviewed the Cream in 1967, and Felix Pappalardi brought the tape down, and we played it a month before it came out, man.
Right.
And he says it was awesome, and we got in so much trouble. Whether ATCO threatened to sue everybody until they had 50,000 advance orders, and then we were marketing geniuses. But the fact that Larry mentioned that, like, validated how cool it was to have the recording.
And you have that still?
I do, and it's on MP3, and I'll even give you a copy of it.
Oh, that'd be a pleasure. Thank you so much. So you collect guitars. What is your oldest guitar?
My oldest guitar actually is my dad's 1960 Martin Triple Odd 18G. It's a nylon string folk guitar. Because he sold his Gretsch in 1960 and bought this thing, and he did the folk thing. He played the Hungry Eye and North Beach and all that stuff. He did musical theater.
Them are names that are just, people forget about them.
Yeah. Yeah.
People forget about it. You could walk by, on North Beach, and you could walk by the Hungry Eye. I remember they used to have a little painting right there, and so many people, so many great people performed.
The Kingston
in there.
Trio. I mean, they made an album there, right?
Think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it. Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, yeah. Iconic.
So you have vintage media, you have collectibles. What's your music? These are music things. What other items do you collect? And obviously, your house must look like a museum if you.
It's a little cluttered.
So you haven't categorized everything yet?
Well, like my vinyl, I've got LPs and CDs and a lot of 45s. I probably got 3,000 LPs and probably 2,000 45s and 500 or 600 CDs. My thing is the Beatles. I was always really into the Beatles.
Amen.
I had a massive collection, which I sold.
Do you still do Beatle music yourself?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have it all memorized. I don't even have to listen to it. I just I think about a song and I hear it in my head. But so this Rewind band, we have an acoustic version called Unwind, and we do. It's not just 80s. We do like I do some Beatles songs, and we do 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever.
And you're doing an acoustic?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And how many people are
We're like
involved?
5 of us. We have like djembe and bongos and.
Oh, so you're actually having a whole ensemble then?
Yeah, and we change the arrangements too, so we sort of acoustify the arrangements. It's more than just, you know, it's pretty hip. You know, we've done like some reggae treatments to some songs.
To
that,
some of the Beatles?
Yeah, yeah, we have. We've done some cool stuff,
That's
and
good,
it's
that's
just
good.
totally off the cuff because we've all been playing for years. You go, hey, let's just try a little little samba on this deal, and next thing you know, it's like, hey, that's awesome. That rocks. You know.
That's really interesting that you do something like that, because the Beatles music, the Beatles are my biggest influence. Them
Me
and
too.
the Stones, they've always been, you know, they were so clean when they first came out, and I remember my neighbors, when they were watching them, my reaction was, I liked these 4 guys because, you know, you've seen the black and white,
Right.
but what really set me off was I was seeing all these girls just like going crazy.
That's why you get into music,
That's
right?
right. You know, I'm not lying here, am I? No, not at all.
It's all truth, brother.
All truth. So when you do your Beatles stuff,
Yeah.
right, the acoustic, do you do it in front of audience, or is
Oh,
it
yeah.
just for,
Yeah. So Unwind is a thing. Like we play gigs as Unwind. In fact, I'm just involved in this other trio. I just started up. It's called In the Groove Trio, and we've got a couple gigs coming up in the next month or so. And you know, I do like Here Comes the Sun, and I do Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood's probably my favorite Beatles song. Just I
Great
love the
song.
whole vibe of it. You know, the riff is awesome.
I once had a girl, right?
Or should I say
she
has
had
me?
me. It was great,
Yeah.
man. We could do that. That's great.
And I know the like the actual way to play it. You know, with the capo on the I think the 3rd fret and an E. And,
Isn't that a great song?
oh man, when I learned how to play that right, I was like over the moon on that thing. And Here Comes the Sun too.
It's a great
I
song.
can play that, you
Good
know,
song.
and I learned that by watching a Saturday Night Live episode with George Harrison and Paul Simon. in the
Together on
70s.
the show?
Yeah, they played that song
Didn't see it.
in the '77, I think,
Okay.
'76.
Yeah.
And I was watching him. Oh, he's got the capo on 7. D form of A on, you know, like
You got to put, hey George, you got to put it on 7. How good is that?
That's right. I was very excited when I learned how to play that song.
It is exciting when you learn something from those. Well,
Who wrote it? Yeah, man.
I
Doesn't get
mean,
any better than
it
that.
doesn't get any better than that. So what are some of your projects? What are you looking for? Is it okay if I call you Leggy?
Please call me Leggy. In fact, Leggy. So the
Tell me
actual
about-
name I should mention.
Yes.
It's Leggy Big Girl's Blouse. And for those of you who are familiar with UK nomenclature, you know, it's there's some.
Tell us what it is if they want.
Well, it's kind of like if you're like on the feminine side of life, you're a big girl. Hey, you big girl's blouse. You know, that's what they tell you. So I got that from my friend Luke because he always used to call me that. Hey, you big girl's blouse. I'm like, that's funny. And then Leggy came from, remember the Ruddles?
Yes.
All You Need Is Cash?
Yes.
Leggy Mountbatten was their manager, right? Hopping around Liverpool, you know, with tight trousers and all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so Leggy, I'm like, when we first started this band, I was thinking, what would be funny? Like, I mean, kind of an insider thing, but
Right, you're
what's
having
funny?
humor. You're having humor.
Leggy Big Girl's Blouse is funny. And then look at me, right? I'm like, you know, in my 50s. Hey,
Just kicking ass. He's in his 50s and he's still kicking ass, man.
I'm having more fun now than I've ever
Why
had in
not,
my
right?
entire life.
You know. So, what are some of your projects? What are you looking forward in the future? What do you see you with Rewind, Unwind, your persona as a lady? What do you see? What's in store for you? You're a collector.
Where do I see myself in 5 years?
Yeah. Let's go 3. Three's good.
You know, I just want to keep playing. I love acoustic music. I want to do more acoustic duo and trio work. It's a lot less work than playing in a band, but I love acoustic music. I really love it, and I think you can really get a lot more across. It's more intimate, and if you're the only guitar player in an acoustic trio, you have to be a lot more creative, and you have to come up with, you know, you have a lot of holes to fill, and you got to work on like different arrangement and how's it going to sound and who's going to play the riff. If you're not going to play it,
Right.
how are you going to do that?
Right.
Sometimes you sing it.
Right.
But I really like that. I'm excited for Rewind to get going again after the pandemic, of course. In 2019, we played 65 gigs.
No kidding.
Yeah, we played a lot.
You did.
Sometimes 2 or 3 gigs in a week. And I think that as soon as things are going to open up again, we're going to be rocking right back in that level again. So I'm excited for
nice.
that.
Now, do you think that because of the pandemic and it affected millions, it affected from the lowest band all the way up to the greatest bands in the world? Yeah, let's hope that does happen. I know that we're going to open up, but it hurt a lot of people. Hurt a lot of. So I think there should be a revitalization. That's what I feel. A lot of energy should be coming.
And
out
I'm
of
really
this.
hoping that a lot of people that their values have changed a little bit. I think that I mean, mine certainly did. I certainly got some perspective on life and a lot of different things. Not having anywhere to go for a few months, and it really made me appreciate. Just like hanging out at the Turf Club, how cool is that? Just to be able to go and see a band on a Friday night and have a few drinks. I can't wait to do that. I'm going to celebrate that hard.
Yes, exactly. So you're going to be coming back. You guys are coming back.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. You showed us some photos earlier, and they were some pretty interesting pictures right there.
Yeah.
We talked about the posters and stuff, but there was one of your father. Was it your father or your grandmother?
Yeah, my dad.
It was your father. So your dad was a singer and guitar player also?
Yeah, he wrote and recorded all the songs. He wrote and played, and he had a little band.
His Barksdale. That's amazing.
Don Barksdale, yeah. Because my grandfather, we had a family ad agency in Oakland, and it was right next door to Barksdale's radio station. And we would write copy for radio jingles and stuff, and my dad would sing them too.
Wow.
So my grandfather introduced him to Don Barksdale. Interestingly enough, Tempest Storm was actually a really good friend of our family too.
Wow.
And she's about 93 years old, but she used to come over to my grandparents' house.
Is she still comprehensive?
I haven't seen her in years. My grandparents are long gone, so I haven't seen her since I think 2008.
I definitely want Sugar Pie. I've seen her just recently on a thing, and you're one of the greatest, Sugar Pie. James Brown once told her, "Don't work so hard," because he has to come out and just blaze, because you've seen her probably some of her old films.
Yeah.
Just great. So you know what? I want to thank you for coming on today. You wanted to give a shout out to somebody.
Yes, I do.
Could you look straight into number 2 right here? And should we talk about him? Or what would you have to
Yeah.
say?
So the whole reason I'm here, aside from being Leggy and all that, is because Bad Apple Records in Castro Valley, Don, he and I talk all the time about music and records and stuff, and Don is the one that connected me with you, Greg. Even though you and I are Facebook friends, but that's from another
Another realm.
Another realm. And Don and I always talk, and I guess he thought I was interesting. And
Totally.
so I'd like to just say, let's support Don and Bad Apple Records. It's the only record store in the area.
Only.
It's
Vintage.
He's got a lot of hidden gems there. Go there and buy your records. Order your records from Don. Let's support him, so he's going to be around.
Yeah, we need that. We need Don there. Don, thank you for bringing Leggy to my show. And yeah, you just heard, we just gave you an endorsement, man. You're one of the great record stores in our area right now. The only one that's open, which is really cool. But I'd like to thank Leggy for coming on. Leggy, thank you. I want you to have long life.
Yeah, man.
I want you just to be, when you go back out there, I want you to be powerful. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on.
You too.
Thank you, brother.
Is it okay for me to say hello to a couple?
Of course,
people?
man. Of course.
All right. So I'd like to thank my lovely wife, Darlene, who is just, look at me. She is a saint, okay? Just to put up with me, and I got to do my makeup if I make a mistake. It's like diva action, So anyway, she's a real saint. She's been with me for 34 years.
Beautiful.
And I got some other good friends. Penny, one of my big fans, Penny Krogan, out in Idaho now. But she's a big fan, and she's a great, very supportive gal. So anyway, that's about all I have for you.
Anybody else?
Well, of course, all my bandmates at Rewind. Looking forward to jamming with you guys and playing some gigs. And of course, my family, my dad and my mom. My mom's very supportive, and my dad, of course, is very supportive of all this nonsense. And just all my good friends. Got a lot of friends out there.
So thank you so much. You know what? He shows a lot of himself to us today, and how much he loves people. I'd like to thank Leggy for coming on. I'd like to have him coming on probably in a year or two. We'll have him back, see how he's doing. I'm gonna get that little.
I'll have a
you
different
know I'm
outfit.
gonna get that thing from cream from them, man. Just
Yeah, you will get
know
it.
it is.
I will send
But
it
I
to
like
you.
to thank you so much
Yeah,
for coming
man.
on. It was great. It was fun. What we normally do, we should give a shout out to all our fans. We'd like to thank everybody for supporting us as being the #1 independent show in this area. Thank you so much. We're worldwide. This is Harmonics with Leggy. I'm Gregory Correa, and we like to say peace and love to all of you.
Rock on.
Rock on.